The upkeep. The part of the turn no one likes. Doesn't replenish your mana like the untap step does, and it doesn't give you cards like the draw step does. You can't cast creatures or attack like in the main phase. In fact, the upkeep step is usually forgotten, or it's the step where you pay your upkeep cost, which is like the magic version of taxes, and we all know you should never pay your taxes. But one brave Ogre Warlock is taking the upkeep step and giving it to you, the people. I mean the post-combat main phase. Obeka Splitter of Seconds costs 1 generic mana, 1 blue, 1 black, and 1 red. It's a 2/5 with Menace, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get that many additional upkeep steps after this phase. Since this ability can really only trigger during the combat phase, the new upkeeps will happen after your combat ends, before your second main phase. Now, a couple things about Obeka. She does not replace your regular upkeep, instead it adds a potential upkeep step after the combat phase. That also means if you want something to trigger the turn that you play it, you have to play it before the attack step, as there's no space after the attack step and the new upkeep steps that will happen after combat. Before we can talk about using Obeka to exploit upkeep effects, we need to make sure that she actually deals damage. She does have a menace effect built in, which means she's already got a leg up in combat. But if you happen to run into any creature-heavy decks, they can usually just block, so we need to run cards that will help Obeka deal damage more consistently, and we're going to do that with more evasion, specifically flying, and we're going to prevent Obeka from being blocked. Aqueous Form, Tricks of the Trade, Silver Shroud Costume, and Infiltrator's Mage Mark will all prevent Obeka from being blocked straight up. Arcane Flight, One with the Wind, Cartouche of Knowledge, and Fey Flight will all give Obeka flying and a small power buff. Flying on top of the Menace will make it even harder to block Obeka, and the power boost will give you an extra upkeep here and there. You know what's cooler than 2 extra upkeeps? 3 or 4 extra upkeeps. These are the cards that will let us exploit Obeka, and we start with Dragon Master Outcast, Endless Evil, and Extravagant Replication, which will start spitting out mini-clones, real clones, or 5/5 dragons. The Ruinous Powers and Wildfire Devils will both let you get some spells from your opponents, either dealing extra damage with them or casting them for free. Festering Wound, Bulwark, and Quakebringer will all deal lots of direct damage to the table. Creeping Bloodsucker will also deal damage table-wide, but alongside Venser's Journal will help you get back some of the life you will be spending. And we will be spending life. Exalted Flamer of something will get you an instant or sorcery back from your graveyard each upkeep, and you have a lot of power in those card types. Braid's Conjurer Adept is pretty risky. If you can get a clear Obeka attack, you will get in a few triggers before anyone else can. Because of the risky nature of this Braids, we run a few cards that will help us get out of self-inflicted jams, which we will get to a bit later in the video. Triskaidekaphobia is something I'm trying out, just to see if having multiple triggers make this a worthwhile threat. I'm not sure that it is, but this does seem like a lot of fun. Herald of Leshrac seems like a lot of fun for you and nobody else. In general, this effect is something I would avoid running in friendly games, but the fact that this has a mana value of 7, and it doesn't really have a built-in protection, and it's something that gradually and eventually happens, and the lands will ultimately go back to their owners, means this probably won't ever really be messed up, just like a little bit messed up. Darksteel Reactor and Mechanized Production will just win the game for you. Yep, that's it. If they sit around for a while, you win. Keep in mind that if either of these are a few counters short, you can increase your Obeka's power to get more upkeeps and win the game faster than the table might see coming. The most cohesive set of upkeep abusers are the Courts and Hondens. You could also run some Shrines to get effects out of the Hondens, but those won't really get the Obeka bonus, so I'm ignoring them here. The Hondens of Infinite Rage, Knight's Reach, and Seeing Winds will get you damage, discard, and draw, the 3 Ds of a healthy breakfast. Courts of Ire, Cunning, Ambition, and Ventress, Lochthwain, and Embereth are all really good when you have them trigger 3 times a turn. You can either read the cards for yourself, or just trust me on this one. We'll start off sculpting with the card that I bet 99% of people thought of when they first saw Obeka. Yep, Phyrexian Arena. And I am the most basic of bitch for running it. This will be one of those cards that could kill you from overuse, which is why we run some of those life gainers from earlier and some other cards later, which will end up saving you from killing yourself. Surprise, surprise, Suspend also works with Obeka. We're going to run Inspiring Refrain to continually draw extra cards, and Ancestral Vision to draw a good chunk of them at one time. Mind Unbound and Patient Rebuilding will get you a ton of cards, and you could potentially mill yourself out of the game with these, so make sure to pay attention if you play either of them. We round out the sculpting with Twilight Prophet and Watcher of Hours. Twilight Prophet seems busted once you get it going, especially since I run suspend cards that generally have an inflated mana value. Watcher of Hours is probably my weakest sculpting card. Feel free to swap it for something else, but I'm willing to give it a shot here because of the suspend. Now, for all those times where maybe you let a Phyrexian Arena run wild or somehow get 15 counters on your Mind Unbound, we run a bit of insurance to make sure you don't exit yourself out of the game. Braid's Arisen Nightmare, Claws of Gix, and my personal favorite, Despotic Scepter, will all let you dispose of any unwanted cards that have gotten out of hand. The last uh-oh card is Smokestack, which has the very real effect of making everyone hate you and you will no longer have any friends, and it also does need to be removed before it kills you as well as everyone else, so play this at your own discretion, but it's an old card that I used to have a lot of fun playing, so I'm giving it a shot. Our interaction is kinda wacky, especially considering the normal god tier interaction that's normally found in Grixis decks. I've got a suspend package including Inevitable Betrayal, Reality Strobe, and Patissis. I also run Corrosion and Glistening Oil. Be careful with Glistening Oil, as the creature you put it on, while it will eventually waste away, you'll get the oil back, it also gives it Infect, so make sure not to put it on something that could kill you in one turn. Now I am giddy to run Bomb Squad and Sinister Concierge. Bomb Squad will start blowing up your opponent's creatures, and this is just hilarious. And Sinister Concierge can get multiple of your opponent's creatures in these suspend loops. With Obeka, your Concierge will keep coming back before your opponent's creatures keep coming back, and then you can sacrifice a Concierge, and you're just going to continually suspend all your opponent's creatures, and man, that sounds like a lot of fun. I only run a few wipes since upkeep triggers generally only come on permanents, so I want to have a lot of stuff on the board and not in the graveyard. Curse of the Cabal is funny because you can suspend it, deal damage with Obeka, and have it cast before anyone can do anything about it. Now the other wipe is Vile Requiem, which I think can be very powerful, given that you can technically wipe out a bunch of creatures, but very specific creatures. The ramp is mostly standard. I use all 3 applicable signets, and all 3 applicable talismans. I also run Thought Vessel and Felwar Stone to finish off the traditional ramp. Braid of Fire doesn't have any great big payoffs for me, it's just about getting some extra mana here and there, though you could totally work the deck to have a big Braid payoff. And this is the first time I've ever thought about using Replicating Ring, and I hope it's good here, because if it isn't, then I don't think it's good anywhere. I run 2 utility lands, mostly because this is a 3-color deck and there are a lot of mana pips in the casting costs. Escape Tunnels will give you a sneaky unblockability for Obeka, and Inventor's Fair will recoup some of the life you lose from stuff like Phyrexian Arena, as well as let you tutor for an artifact if you happen to need one. For mana, I run my 3-color package, which includes 4 lands that can make any color you could need. Then I run 7 of the duels for Rakdos, Dimir, and Izzet. I finish off the mana with 4 islands, 3 mountains, and 2 swamps. Now with the utility lands, that gives us a grand total of 36 lands in the deck. You can sort of slow roll Obeka since most of your upkeep effects work as normal, so you can build up a few before you start pressuring with Obeka. A few cards like Curse of the Cabal you probably want to cast the turn you expect to get enough triggers to cast it with Obeka. Thank you for watching Element Hobbies. If you want to help out the channel, feel free to watch another video that YouTube will recommend, and I will see you around.